Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of the Financial Freedom Secrets podcast. And I have a good friend of mine, Samantha J Brunskill here to share some valuable insights that I believe is critically important as we get towards the end of 2022. We start preparing to 2023. My observation around business owners is that basically after kind of Melbourne Cup here in Australia, business owners check out, they stop showing up, they start making excuses, they start procrastinating. And business owners do this around so many various deadlines, whether it be Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Australia Day, end of financial year, whatever it might be. There's always a reason to defer and procrastinate around how they grow and scale their business and their wealth. I really want to tap into why and these invisible ceilings that get in the way of people scaling successful 7-figure, 8-figure, and 9-figure businesses, and what we can do to create financial freedom faster. So, Samantha, I appreciate you making the time. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. Yeah, I'm super pumped to get into this conversation today.
I'm looking forward to it. So let's hear a little bit about you. Tell us about who is Samantha J? What's your story?
Yeah, so for me, I got into entrepreneurship at 14 years old. I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade. My entrepreneurial career more started as a quest to get well, really searching for that sense of purpose and meaning in the world. I was struggling with a lot of mental health issues at the time, and I threw myself into my family's company and built it into multi-8-figure company by the time I was 22 years old. But I did, at the end of that day, really have a deep level of loneliness and feeling like I was empty inside. And so I've really been on this soulful journey ever since to wonder how can we actually create great deals of financial freedom and success, but actually feel really deeply fulfilled and have a sense of meaning and this sense of aliveness at every single step of the journey. So now I am a business strategist and I help people to merge spirituality and business strategy so that they can create that 7-figure, 8-figure empire and actually feel really happy inside along the way.
I love that. Fantastic. Look, I think this is something that is super important because I've observed this type of behavior a lot. We see a lot of entrepreneurs that on the outside, they look really successful. They've created these amazing businesses, but inside they are unhappy. They're depressed, they're empty, they lack a lot of fulfillment and purpose. And in many cases, they end up burning their business to the ground or self-sabotaging and putting themselves back into difficult situations that really perpetuates this invisible ceiling. So a couple of things. First thing, why are so many business owners running their business from this one-dimensional view of success? They're just chasing the vanity metrics. Why do you think that's so commonplace these days?
I say that we're either led from a place of inadequacy, where we're either perfecting, performing, pleasing, or proving, or we're led from a sense of wholeness. And so often we try to discover who we are in the outside world if we've never had anybody help us to build this sense of inner connection. So if we don't have an inner connection, it's like we've seen mom, we've seen dad. It's like, this is life, go out and make a living and do all these things. But if we haven't actually had anybody in our family circle or our friends who's ever been comfortable with talking about our feelings, talking about that there's actually an inner world as well as an outer world, then we just kind of live in accordance to society's standards and rules until often people have like depression, bankruptcy, burnout, or something, illness that gets them inside of themselves. And that was me. I had built this multi-8-figure company and I was like, I had to have something in my external world slow me down or kind of shake me up to realize, there's an inner world too. And so now I get people to do two things. I get them to put one foot in this inner world. So to make a practice each and every morning to connecting to what's going on inside of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, how are you feeling? And first, like connect into that sense of gratitude, appreciation, and peace with who you are. and then get into your day, put one foot in this desire to be more and do more. And if we can kind of play this dance of like, there's a part of us where nothing will ever be good enough for us, and we're always going to desire to be and do more. Like that's how we're wired for evolution. That's great. But we just need to make sure that each and every day we take time to be like, I am enough and I am happy with what I've got and who I am. And if we can do that, then we will feel happy and fulfilled along the way.
That makes a lot of sense, and it definitely resonates with me. Coming from somebody who had very humble beginnings, I saw my parents battle for all of my childhood. I set out in pursuit of crafting my external environment to avoid that level of hardship and to become more than what they were able to become. And when you achieve those things, they're often very empty, right? Like you always have this mindset that you're like, hey, if once I get to this milestone, I'm going to be happy. And then you get there and you're like, that's nice. What's next? And this is constant pursuit of what's next. And I remember I was listening to somebody speaking on stoicism. And the tipping point for me, the kind of light bulb moment for me was the definition between enough and extra. It's those individuals, and I see this very much in the entrepreneurial space, that are always chasing extra, thinking that extra will make them happy, and they never acknowledge what is enough. And when we can acknowledge that we have enough and we choose to pursue extra because we want to, then that's where a lot of fulfillment and happiness can be found, as opposed to this constant chase of more and more and more and more, which typically I've observed gets people deeper and deeper into this state of depression and emptiness. And it's really interesting. Why do you feel people struggle so much to make that connection to what is enough?
Because we often acquire our self-worth with the result, whereas if we instead focused on who we are becoming, that is actually what we're seeking. What we're seeking, that feeling of like, oh, what we're actually seeking is our soul, it's our spirit, it's the process of self-realization and knowing who we're becoming. Because at the end of the day, there's two forms of wealth. There's the wealth that we acquire in the material world, which is absolutely vital to us all experiencing freedom. And then there's the accumulation of soul wealth. And if we can put a foot in both of those, it's like it's the soul wealth that is the long-lasting wealth that we take beyond this life, which is actually where the fulfillment is. And if we can merge them both, I'm focusing on who I'm becoming. It's kind of like this metaphor of a little kid on a bike. If we're that little kid that's on the bike and, the dad's watching and we're on that bike and we're going down it and we won, and then the dad's like, now do it again. And we're like, and then we get down the road and we're doing it again and again. And it's like that little kid would always feel like nothing's ever good enough. But if we can instead set goals, be that little kid on that bike, and we get to the end of something and it's like, yes, I celebrate you, well done. And we just stop and pause just for a moment. And we appreciate how scared we were at the start, the obstacles that we overcome, the many times we doubted. And it's like, I celebrate you and appreciate who you've become. If we just even can pause and extend that and focus on that, it's like that's when we experience that level of soul appreciation. And then it's like, okay, and then the dad's like, okay, now let's go again. That's the balance that helps us to feel really fulfilled inside. I
get it. It seems really simple, but I found this very challenging. The idea of that pause that I feel entrepreneurs really struggle with. I know I've encountered this myself. And for many years, I used to refer to myself as a shark, right? I'm like, hey, if I'm like a shark, if I stop moving, I'm going to die, right? And I had a mindset coach, and she pulled me up on it once. And she said, Jackson, do you realize what you just said? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's just a joke. She said, no, your words have power. Let's talk about that. You're like a shark. If you stop moving, you die. Like, let's think about that for a moment. That's pretty heavy, right? And I feel that that's the persona that so many entrepreneurs take, that if they stop moving, they're going to lose momentum, they're going to miss opportunities, they're going to stop growing, whatever it might be. But because they don't pause and reflect and acknowledge and pay gratitude to their growth and the experience to date, that's where the biggest opportunities are, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what fuels this fear of pause in your opinion, in your experience, Samantha?
The fear of pause is actually the entrepreneur's greatest asset. It's that they're driven by high expectations and a value of excellence. But if that's not balanced, then nothing is ever good enough. Okay, so
yes.
if we want to reframe this so that the entrepreneur doesn't have to lose that high performance and excellence, what I would say to the entrepreneur is actually in the pause, like, look at how you could have done things better. It's in the pause that you can reflect and not just keep implementing the same strategy the second time. And actually your execution in your next stage of doing will actually be at a higher level because you took the time to reflect, to appreciate who you are, and to just, look at all the details a little bit better. And I think when it's reframed in this way, it's like, oh, so you mean that by me taking time to celebrate myself and appreciate and reflect, I'm actually going to be even better in my next execution? I think then that encourages them to go, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that then.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the challenge, right? When you're growing a business, say from 0 to like 6 figures, even multi-6 figures, a lot of it is tactical, right? Like you get there through effort and through exertion because it's hard. And then there becomes this shift that when you get to kind of 7 figures and above, it's not so much about strategies and tactics anymore. It's a different game. Let's talk a little bit about these invisible ceilings. What are the biggest shifts, aside from what we've already spoken about, that these 7-figure entrepreneurs or those pushing 7 figures need to start making in order to get them to multi-7 figures or 8 figures?
In the multi-6-figure to 7-figure stage, often the business is a trap that is requiring the entrepreneur to always be blowing out fires and being this scattered, chaotic person, which means that they never want to stop and pause. The 7-figure leader and entrepreneur needs to get out of being the one that's always in the control seat, that's always, in this scattered, chaotic energy. So ultimately inside of themselves, they need to have a more stabilized nervous system. And they actually need to be more okay with not being this chaotic, always on person, because they need to be the most calmest person in the ship. They need to elevate above everybody that's on the tools and actually be looking at how can we do this in more efficient and effective ways. And that's going to be hard because often what drove them as an entrepreneur was the sense of significance of being the one where everybody needed them. So that's where a meaningful vision comes in. And the entrepreneur to get to 7 and 8 figures needs to be driven by something beyond their ego and those sense of significance. And that's why the inner work's so important. Because for a long time, I had this codependency with my business, which is why I couldn't stop, because I got all my needs from my business. The moment that I started to give myself all those needs, the need to be seen, chosen, significant, valued, to be cared for, and I gave them all to myself, I became a better business leader. And that's what the 7-figure and 8-figure person needs, is if you can look at where do I go to escape life through my business to get all my needs met, which is a very vulnerable and confronting conversation. But that is all the places where your business is constrained in its growth. Because if you can say, okay, I go to get all my needs met from my business there, and if I could just fill up my own cup with it, what would be a smarter way to run the business there? That's often all where they would be hiring people, systemizing things, and their business would be running at a much higher efficiency because they're not trying to control them places from a place of self-gain rather than that's a good business decision.
Makes a lot of sense, right? And I've experienced this myself. Your business cannot be the destination. It needs to be the vehicle, right? And I see so many people, they place their identity, their business is their identity. And and with that, when they neglect it, it's like neglecting a child. And it's painful. And if they're not giving it all of that time and attention, then they feel guilty. And there's so much guilt around that. And I know for myself, when I was able to create other outlets and make sure that, okay, my business is great. I love it. I'm passionate about it. But it is an extension of what I do. It is not who I am. Then it's there as rocket fuel to fund other things, to create more freedom, to create more flexibility, to create more opportunity. And then it's interesting. It takes a while to overcome that guilt, but then you get to a point where when you spend time out of your business, it actually fills your cup. It's a pretty powerful position to be in. So for business owners who might be thinking about this, they go, this is all great ideas, right? Where do I actually start? What are some kind of practical tips to start releasing that connection to guilt and anxiety when people are trying to separate themselves from their business?
I definitely think start to look at where you create business problems to keep you in your business. Because if we really want to build a 7 or 8 figure business, it has to run without you at that point. And so look at where do I create sabotage inside of my business or problems and make things harder for myself so that, continue to stay stuck in this place. And to be honest, I actually think that we often need a mentor, somebody outside of ourselves. If you think about, okay, in 5 to 10 years, if you could have it all, craft that vision and then get a mentor to help you to look at what unconsciously your belief systems are playing out with your behaviors, where you're actually sabotaging that from happening. And there's going to be two ways that's happening. Either you don't fully believe that you can have it all, which is to do with your self-worth, and you want to start to reflect on your mum and your dad. Where were they not allowed to have it all? Where were the stories that you were told? One of the common ones is like making money's hard, right? And so have a look at your mum and dad and those stories and look at, do you actually not believe that you can have it all? So you kind of show up in, could even be one of your summits, you show up half-assed in Jackson Summit because I don't really believe that I can have it all. So I come to 50% of the cause or all of that. So first, and then start to go, great, this is my vision in 5 to 10 years if I can have it all. And if you are going to say that, then you want to first work on your belief systems about the self-sabotage. It's out of your conscious awareness. We don't even realize how, as a business leader, we can hold really high expectations of all of our staff and never get supported. There's so many different ways that with the self-sabotage it can be playing out. So we want to work with a mentor to help us to go, where am I actually playing out as a leader behaviors to keep myself stuck on a bubble? Maybe I've really loved getting to $3 million a year or $6 million a year, but there's still an aspect of me that's holding on to control or doesn't want to, wants to have a business that always keeps me away from, having a deeper connection with myself. It's really subtle stuff that makes a big difference. Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? It's so hard to see the light through the trees when you're on the coal face, right? And this is why you do need that external perspective to call you out on your bullshit. Let's put it bluntly, to be able to acknowledge where you are self-sabotaging. I think this is the hardest part. Most of the time, you don't know you're self-sabotaging until after the fact, right? It's only in hindsight you go, shit, maybe I was my own worst enemy there, or creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, playing into my own beliefs and kind of pre-wired behaviors. And it really takes a lot to kind of rise above it, I've come to realize. And there needs to be some admission of fault or those limiting factors that are getting in the way of growth. Another interesting phenomena here, Samantha, is the stark contrast between those who are the most successful and the most wealthy don't outwardly appear to be wealthy. And it's interesting, those who are typically the most showy are the ones that tend to be the ones that have the least or the typically the most unhappy. Why do you think that is?
I think that there's a few different reasons for that. I think that for some people, it's driven from a deep level of insecurity, where they feel that they need to, appear in a certain way in order to seek validation or approval. This could be the pursuit for a certain car or house or a level of status. And then I think there's the other group of people that it is to do with their authenticity and their self-expression and their values. And so it's more about them and who they are as an individual than trying to prove something and create a persona into the world. So when I think about my family and my mum and dad, they're very wealthy people, but their value system, they don't care for, nice clothes or this or that. And then I know other wealthy people who have a value system for more of the material world, and that's just simply their expression. So I think that it really, at the end of the day, comes down to people's values and also how they then get their sense of belonging in their social group. I think that one of the things that's in Australia is that there's actually a big fear of wealth. And for any of the listeners, sometimes people don't actually want to appear as wealthy because they're afraid of rejection. I'm going to lose my connections with everybody. If I, outwardly express that I'm going to get into tall poppy syndrome. And so they think one of the biggest things is but if I take my visibility to a new level, if I take my business to a new level, if I then, will that mean that I'm going to become a dickhead? And so this is actually a very big thing for the group of people that are very scared to express their affluence in an external way. What I hear from them in their language is, I'm afraid to be a dickhead. I'm afraid to become like the wealthy people. I'm afraid to be the Mr. whoever he was on The Simpsons, and so there's kind of their way of reconciling that in their psyche with wealth is, I'm going to show myself like the everyday person to not become that dickhead or that demonized person of success inside is one way I've seen them cope as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? Do you feel that having those beliefs around money, that there's a lot of things we hear, like money's the root cause of all evil, and wealthy people are nasty, and there's a lot of power in having those beliefs, right? And that can have a lot of power over you. We've got to be mindful of that. That can be a self-limiting belief, an invisible ceiling in itself. Because if we feel like wealth and scaling a business means that we're going to become all of those things, then that can create a subconscious barrier to create those things. Because it's always my belief that money is inanimate. It has no energy apart from the energy that you place upon it. And if you want to become a bad person as a result of the amount of wealth that you have, then you will be. And if you want to be a great person and do great things, then you can do that too. So I think what's really important here is about, instead of trying to use money as a way to externally validate everyone else and be seen in a particular way, it's about, what are you going to do to make you happy? Maybe driving a $10,000 old bomb makes you happy. Maybe driving a Lamborghini makes you happy. I don't think that necessarily determines your value as a person, right?
That's right. And it really comes back to values at the end of the day. There is actually no right or wrong between the person who shows their affluence in their clothes or somebody who doesn't. There's actually no right or wrong. At the end of the day, we're all being driven by different values, and money is only ever going to amplify who we are inside. And so I actually am highly driven for money, and a lot of people have demonized me for that and said that it's not spiritual. But the truth is that once you feel more fuller inside of yourself, there's no limits on the impact you can create, the financial that you can create, because you're not looking to that stuff to fill you up. It's just simply about expressing who you've known yourself to be inside, and then that amplifies it, right? And so money is going to amplify who you are. If you're a good-hearted, kind person, more money is just going to mean that you have more energy to spread that kindness and use it as a resource to do good in the world.
Correct. Okay. And when we're in a capitalist society, being wealthy, I believe, is a non-negotiable if you want to have any sort of impact and leave any meaningful legacy. I'm not driven by money, right? I couldn't care less. I know that I've always had the belief that if I do the right thing and I pursue my passions, then money will always be a byproduct of what I do. And that's how I've always built my wealth. And I think it's important of understanding your intrinsic drivers, because for many years I did try and chase money for blind pursuit of it, and it didn't work for me. It was always against the grain. And it was when I realized, I'm like, hey, look, if I just pursue my passions, I do the right thing, I deliver more value to the world in this capitalist system that we're in, I will be rewarded commensurate to that value. So the more value I add, the more value I will receive. And that's kind of worked for me. Do you feel that that's a big issue in the entrepreneurial world, that people don't realize the currencies that they actually need to trade in to be successful?
I love that. I love how you spoke to that, because there's the law of value, or the law of compensation, which literally just says the more that I share value with the world, I trust that it's going to flow back to me. So I definitely think that that's 100% how I operate, and I think that that's the best way we can live in the world today. So you just articulated it perfectly. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's great to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So let's do some actionable insights. Like, I think there's some symptoms, common symptoms that are triggers for people to start playing this more inner game. And I know that I can speak from firsthand experience. I've worked with a lot of mindset mentors, a lot of individuals that have helped me with that kind of inner game and personal performance. And it's been the best work that I've ever done. It's far outweighed a lot of the tactical kind of business strategy stuff that I've done. And it's not to say that's not important, but it's about making sure that we combine the internal with the external. So what are the common symptoms that people should be looking out for that is a trigger for needing to work with, say, somebody like yourself, Sam?
Yeah, 100%. Well, today we've really spoken a lot about codependency with our business. So if we can't stop, or if us taking time away from our business creates a level of anxiety or feeling overwhelmed, we know that that's a sign of feeling codependent with our business. So what we want to be able to do is I would like everybody to start to reflect on what are the needs that I get from my business. Like try to do an audit with that of what are the needs. I get a need for significance. I love to be important. I love to be cared for, valued. I get to be seen in my business. Start to look at what are those needs that you get from your business. And you want to work with somebody to start to build that in your inner world, because the more that you're giving that to yourself, the less attached you're going to be to your business, the less you're going to feel in anxiety and feel overwhelmed, and the more smarter business decisions you're going to make. Another one would be, where you're feeling like you've got a fear to take your business to the next level. Okay, so you've got a vision over the next 12 months to create more family holidays, or you want to perhaps take it to a new level in terms of your financials, and you feel like inside of yourself, you're not enough, you don't have what it takes, and you feel like there's actually no one in your world that you can speak to about that, because to the external world, you've got a successful personal brand, and everybody looks like you've got it all together. So behind the scenes for me, clients, I'm the person they go to for no BS business strategy, which I haven't really gone into today, but I do that. But I also am like the person that people come to for emotional support. Because the thing is that most entrepreneurs are incredibly hard on themselves. And so I'm bring the gentleness that they haven't yet built inside of themselves, which gives them the fulfillment. I appreciate them. I help them slow down. I help them rest. I help them prioritize family holidays. Some of my clients just booked 3 family holidays for next year. And I know these clients are going to build better businesses, better systems, better predictability in their cash flow. They're going to be happier. Their marriages thrive more. Their families thrive more. So really, it's about, if you want to have it all, that's when people come to me. I help them to build the better relationships, the better family, and actually have it all. And if you can build a business that can run without you because you're not codependent towards it, then I promise you that's how, I took my family's business into a saleable asset. And yeah, I just want to let everybody know that you can have it all. And, when you're ready to have it all, that's a good time to come see me.
Beautiful. I love that. Look, and I think it's the first thing you need to do is give yourself permission to have it all, right? Because when there's a self-limiting beliefs, particularly when you believe that people perceive you in a certain way and maybe you don't believe that same perspective, that's hard. That's hard to reconcile. And I'd see so many people just keep a strong face because they're trying to be the hero to their community and to their clients and carry all of that burden. And it's okay to be perceived in one way. How about you get the help to rise up to those standards that those other people see you to want to be held to, and do it for yourself. So I think that's critically important. So let's do a little bit of a shift here, Sam. Let's assume we've got the inner game stuff sorted. Let's talk about the business strategy. What do you think are the most important strategic things that need to happen to scale an 8-figure business?
For me, it's about 3 different offers that I help my clients to have. So we do a core signature offer over 12 months, which is monthly recurring revenue, which is the best of what you do, where they've got an educational portal and then the live Q&As to support them with the accountability. So for me, it's about you actually working and creating a blue ocean strategy. Okay, so how can you, with everybody else that's in the world that's delivering what you do, how can you deliver it in a way that's either faster, easier, or more enjoyable? And then we create that method and we deliver it to people over a 12-month experience. Then what we create is a VIP experience for people. So if you were going to deliver that same transformation and you wanted to do it in one day, how could then we architect something where we can give them exclusive access to you and you deliver that within one day? And then the one up from that is then the private strategic advisory work that we do, where we actually help you to start to get anywhere between $2 to $8 million with partnerships, 6 to 10 different partnerships where they're working one-on-one with you in a strategic advisory private partnership. where we're actually trying to look at complementary businesses to what you do and you getting equity share into that, so that not only are you building your empire, but the problems that people go to before or after you, you're actually becoming a private mentor or stakeholder in their businesses, and then you guys are growing like an eco hub together. So this is my 3 offer framework that I help people to build, and we can build that over 3 years or so, which helps them to create that 8-figure or beyond business if they're a coach or an expert or a consultant.
I love it. Fantastic. And look, this is basically the exact same thing we've done in our business, Sam. So it's interesting. It's a bit fortuitous that you're talking about it. We've done the same thing. You've got a really good core offer. You build a community that loves it and thrives in it and that gets a tremendous amount of value. There's always going to be premium people who want to pay a premium price for premium attention. And even though it's giving them the same thing, it's in a consolidated, condensed format that allows them to get the results faster, easier, or more enjoyable. And then the equity piece in the information space, it is the thing that I see experts sleep on the most. And I think it comes down to that first part, right? That they don't believe they deserve to ask for a stake in somebody else's business. They don't believe that they can deliver value to a level to be able to warrant or deserve that. Or they're like, oh, maybe there's so many other people out there that could ask for equity. Why would little old me deserve to get it? And this is where we can create these amazing partnerships where rising tides lift all ships. And not only can you help yourself create an amazing business, but you're delivering an immense amount of value to all of the people that you're collaborating and partnering with, and you can build a tremendous empire. We've done that. Our business group is now worth 8 million. We're on track for 10 mil by the end of the financial year. So we'll crack that 8 figures. And it's using this exact same formula. The difference being it's taken me 15 years to stumble through it myself, whereas working with someone like yourself, you can shortcut that success because you've got a system that walks people through this, which is super valuable.
And 100%, Jackson. And the biggest thing, I help people to do in the first 30 days is if you weren't working in this business anymore, I mean, your name wasn't associated with it, nothing about you was associated with it, how does that make you feel? And often they're like, oh, I feel empty. I'm like, oh God, who am I in the world? And I'm like, well, that's where we need to do all the work, because I know that if I can just help to change that within yourself, you are going to be so efficient in making the decisions, getting the right partners on. And that is where we can move at rapid speed with it. And often that means me helping them to see this is just one of the 7 you'll create. So let's knock this one over and let's get you on 7. And when they're in that empire maker mindset and they're like, great, this is one and I'm going to knock it over. And then it's like, okay, they've got their significance from a huge map of different businesses now, which often makes them, feel really fired up and energized, because what I'm really great at doing is often entrepreneurs, when they come to see me, have massive visions and I'm like, well, let's 10x that. And they're like, and so now they're so excited about this vision that's 10 times bigger than what they were thinking, that they're okay of letting go of the codependency and control with this business, so it's going to run more effectively and we can actually get it to where it needs to be as soon as possible.
That's awesome. And look, there's so many similarities in what we do in terms of finance. Like there's a lot of work that's been done around behavioral finance, particularly loss aversion bias. And we've got to realize that business and finance are one and the same thing. And what's interesting is most business owners don't see themselves as finance people, right? And one of these things is that we've worked out is that people feel the emotional impact of a loss twice as significantly as a gain. So quite simply, you're twice as likely to play it safe and stay in your realm of comfort than you will to pursue growth and scaling a business. And this is what perpetuates a lot of this invisible ceiling, right? So what that means is that you've got to at least put in twice the amount of effort into working towards your goals than you do to stay where you are and try and avoid loss. So 10xing presupposes that we chase the growth because it makes the loss seem so insignificant. And it's super simple, but it's really, really powerful. And this is where people get this breakthrough and let go of these self-limiting beliefs and kind of preservation of what they've built. And they start working towards becoming a bigger and better version of themselves and creating a purpose that's bigger than them. And that's where this growth is found, right?
Yeah, 100%. And, when you talk about a 10x vision, it's like if you put a number on it, that wouldn't motivate somebody like you. So we've got to really understand what your values are so that 10x vision is the metric of what you care about the most, which for me is like, I'm excited by helping millions of little girls be rescued from child sex trafficking. That helps me in the moments where I'm afraid or I'm insecure. There's a purpose larger than me, which is about contribution, which helps me get up and out of bed. In the days I don't want to keep moving, I'm like, okay, I want to do it for them as well. And I get so much joy out of that. So we need to find whatever that is for each person. And then that 10x vision will really pull them out of bed every day.
I love it. This is amazing. Fantastic. So Sam, we've covered a lot of ground. So who's an ideal client for you? Maybe somebody's listening to this. We've hit some sore spots. We've helped them become cognizant of the areas where they may need to focus. So who's an ideal client for you?
Often they're multi-six figures or in the seven figures. They've got a vision to get to seven figures or eight figures, but they don't want to do it how often their peers are doing it around them. So they don't want to be burnt out. They don't want to sacrifice their marriage or their family, and they want to find a different way and somebody that they feel safe to bring their deepest vulnerabilities with. I work with men and women, and they really feel safe to bring their deepest vulnerabilities because our business is never going to outgrow our level of consciousness. So the things that are keeping them in shame and they're silent about, they have no one to talk to about, that they would never tell anybody. It's like, I'm the person that they do tell. And it's like that bits of the shame, that's where we build more confidence and more strength and power in their leadership to take their empire to new levels where they don't have to sacrifice and they can really have it all and be happy when they reach those new destinations too.
I love it. Fantastic. Cool. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to get in touch, Sam, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I'll pop a link to my call in the show notes there, and we jump on an income and impact audit call where I get a bit of an understanding where you want to be over the next 12 months, what's your biggest challenge right now, and I give you some different things that you can implement straight away.
Beautiful. We'll include all those links in the show notes along with all your social if people want to follow you. This has been awesome. If you had to summarize kind of one last golden nugget for people to take away, what would that last piece of advice be, Sam?
Have more why fucking not moments. So that is a moment where, for me, the greatest level of fulfillment and happiness came for me when I rejected society's idea of success or what a successful woman was. And I knew what my next step was in my heart, which made no sense to my financials or anybody around me. I'm so glad I made that one why fucking not moment and have been making them ever since. And I genuinely am the most happiest I've ever been in my life ever since. So follow your heart. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to your head.
I love it. That's beautiful. Fantastic. Right. I appreciate you making the time and sharing so much value. So guys, if you'd like to get in touch with Sam, have a conversation around how she might be able to help you, feel free to reach out. Make sure that you share this podcast and drop us a follow to catch future episodes, and looking forward to catching up with you on next episode. Good to see you, Sam, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Jackson.